thank you for joining us today. I'm Stephen Midgley, Chief Marketing Officer at MediaValet, and it's great to be joined by Marcus Radich, CTO and co-founder at PageProof, and Matthew Nugent, Solutions Engineer at MediaValet, both of whom will be talking about and demoing the integration capabilities of PageProof and MediaValet with Asana. So Marcus, Matt, how are you both doing?
Doing very well, very, very well.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
Great. And I know it's super early for you, Marcus, so thanks for being part of the show.
Yes.
Yeah, looking forward to some really good demos. But before we get into the discussion about disconnected tech stacks and content ecosystems and how we bring that all together, just some housekeeping items for the audience. We will have time at the end for questions, so please submit them during the webinar, and time permitting, we'll get to them at the end of the session. If we run out of time, we will follow up with you individually. As well, a recording of this session will be sent to you when ready. So you'll get a recording in your inbox, and we're happy to follow up with you after the fact. And at the end of the session, we'll have our contact information. Okay, so let's get into it. So today, we're talking about a problem faced by marketer organizations everywhere. And as a marketer, I often feel this pain as well. And that is a disconnected tech stack, or in our specific sphere, a disconnected content ecosystem. So we're going to show and demo how both PageProof and MediaValet seamlessly integrate with Asana, and how those integrations with Asana bring your DAM library and proofing capabilities directly into every task, subtask, and project. No context switching, no manual reentry, no swivel chair management, no need to go from one system to another. But before we get into those demos, let's dig a little bit deeper into those challenges I talked about, and challenges that marketers face as both content volume and distribution channels expand. So we can go to the next slide. Thanks. So one of the biggest challenges we face as marketers, and as we all know, there are lots of challenges and pressure points in the world of marketing, but one in particular has been the rapid growth and expansion of the MarTech stack. Over the last 10 years in particular, the number of solutions available to address specific use cases is grown exponentially. And while they may solve that specific use case, when those solutions don't work together, as they tend not to, you end up with disconnected content systems, disconnected silos of information, which leads to a number of challenges that I'm sure many of you face today. The first is content silos and duplication. So digital assets get created and stored separately in your CMS, your file share, your DAM, email tool, social schedule, platform. You think of all those point solutions that you may have in your content ecosystem that store content and store data and assets. So teams are recreating the same asset multiple times because they can't find what already exists elsewhere. And the result, there's no single source of truth, means outdated or off-brand versions of content are circulating. And so you do see brand degradation. The second challenge resulting from disconnected content ecosystems is inconsistent brand and messaging. So when content lives in different systems with no shared governance, things like tone, visuals, messaging drift across channels. For example, a product update might be reflected on the website, but not in your email templates or ad copy, because there's no connected system to push changes everywhere at the same time. Manual publishing workflows. So disconnected systems mean no centralized workflow for content approval, versioning, or scheduling across channels. And as the demands of content increase and channels multiply, having to publish the same content across web, email, social, and paid channels often means re-uploading and reformatting separately in each tool, which inevitably leads to mistakes. Version control and asset management chaos. And this is a classic challenge of a disconnected content ecosystem. Multiple people editing similar content in different tools leads to that dreaded which version is the real one confusion. And that all leads quickly to brand degradation and frustration, not just within marketing, but the other departments like sales that we as marketers serve. Fragmented performance data. It becomes hard to see holistically which content performs best across which channels, since analytics are fragmented across different systems. And the difficulty of connecting content performance back to actual business outcomes, such as leads and revenue, which at the end of the day, marketing is measured by pipeline contribution. It's because systems don't talk to each other. Not only creates blind spots, but it creates reporting issues and potentially can hinder the reputation of marketing. For those of us on the call here who do quarterly presentations to boards, to not be able to present the correct data and analysis really puts you in a bad light. And so that disconnected content ecosystem makes it challenging to collect the information. It makes it challenging to analyze the information. It makes it challenging to present that information in a coherent fashion. And finally, slower time to market. Time to market for content that needs approvals. You need legal compliance review, translations, or localization slows down as disconnected tools mean these steps happen in silos with manual handoffs. And in our digital world, and especially with the dramatic influence of AI, time to market is critical. And if you have a system that slows you down, it's only going to hinder your progress and make you ineffective. So there are lots of challenges for modern marketers, and we certainly could spend this entire webinar talking about those challenges more deeply. And I'm sure you have your own share of challenges that you're facing. But let's focus on how PageProof and MediaValet are helping to address those challenges and break down the content challenges that we just talked about. And so with that, I'm going to hand over to Matt Nugent, Solutions Engineer at MediaValet, who's going to talk about how MediaValet and Asana work together.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Stephen. So with MediaValet and Asana here, we work with a ton of organizations, both on the creative end and with project management tools. And we want to make sure that these tools are talking to each other and working to each other coherently and effectively to not block up any of your silos, and make sure that everything is running as a smooth operating machine here. With MediaValet and Asana, we work with a ton of customers, and no one uses Asana the same way. So everyone has different boards and projects, and the way that they've organized their workflows is all different. Asana makes sure that your team is able to keep your essentially single source of truth for management all in one place, where MediaValet does the same with your actual assets and files. So we want to merge the two now. So our native integration one, make sure that all of your large files, for example, are coherent and can live within an Asana task. We do this by actually leveraging MediaValet direct links for our asset. So with project management tools, you may find some file limitations there, and no fault to those project management tools. They're not meant to handle large file sizes. We do that and blend the two there. So we can do your large file management, and then you can also have them within your project within Asana there. So they're all working together by using our asset links. Now, for any assets that are within Asana, you can then upload those to MediaValet as well, and also retain any values and data with that upload. So within your Asana task, if you have different values, you can map that over into metadata within MediaValet. You can do that by both the manual push within the Asana task. You can also do that with automations as well. So the last part of our integration also plays with the Asana rules. So if you're setting up any automations within your board, which I'm sure a lot of you are, if not all of you, we have that upload functionality directly into MediaValet. So when something is complete, we can push that finalized file with all of those values into MediaValet. So you're storing both the actual file and any metadata along with that file here. This is also all native, no dev work needed, and you can do this all as an admin within the tool here. So let's actually get into showing what this looks like here. So I'm going to pull up my screen here. Perfect. Everyone can see this okay? All good. Awesome. So within my Asana project here, I have these tasks just to go over each workflow. The first is we're going to do a pull of an asset from MediaValet and place it directly within this Asana task. So once we've installed the application, you'll see the Sync Assets button here at the bottom. Once you click it, we now have a look into MediaValet. So we're going to choose the direction first. We're going to pull assets from MediaValet into Asana. It's now going to open up our category structure within MediaValet. So your library is going to be your root. Now I can navigate to any category. Let's go to our brand refresh one here first. Now, if there are any assets within the category itself, they'll display at the bottom here, or you can drill down further if you need to into any child categories within MediaValet as well. If you're selecting assets from this category, you can select any selection. So you can do 3 or 4 or 5. You can select all 9 assets within this. For this example, let's just select this one here and actually bring this into this task. It's now creating the asset link from MediaValet, and we can now also bypass any file size limitations within Asana because we're creating an asset link. So videos, for example, if you want to use videos in your Asana projects here and you have maybe a 10 gigabyte file, typically, you wouldn't bring that into Asana, but through this integration, we can now since we are leveraging those links. We're going to hit submit here. It's now creating that link, pulling from MediaValet and placing it directly within the task here. So if I scroll down, we can see a little status of what just happened here. If I now click into this asset, it'll open up in a new tab with the full preview of that asset. So I can see the asset itself because we're working out of MediaValet as well. I'm logged in as an admin, but of course, depending on your user permissions, you'll see a very different view. I can also view all of the metadata for this asset, any versions for this asset as well. You have the full preview. If this was a video or audio file, you can hit that play button and get a full playback as well here. Okay, so that's pulling an asset from MediaValet and placing within that Asana task. Now let's do the opposite. Let's push assets from an Asana task into MediaValet now. So within Asana, I have these 2 files here, these 2 JPEGs. So these are uploaded directly into the task and not yet within MediaValet. Now, if I want to push this into MediaValet, I'm using that same workflow. So it's going to be a manual workflow for this option. We hit that sync assets button, except this time we're going to hit this push assets MediaValet feature here. So it's now going to pull up those same fields. So from this area, I can now select the destination category. So which category I want to actually upload these assets into. Now you can do it from the dropdown, but you can also type to navigate to the category. If the category hasn't been created yet, let's say this is a brand new project that you're working on within Asana, you have new fresh assets, you haven't had the chance to build out the categories in MediaValet, we can actually create new categories. So if I can spell correctly here, create new categories in MediaValet just by typing out the new category path here in this end. So it's going to create that new category, upload folders or upload those assets, sorry, into that new category as well. At the very bottom, you also have the ability to map any of those fields within Asana to metadata within MediaValet. So right now I'm exposing all of the metadata fields that I have, so all of the attributes within MediaValet. I can actually map over some fields now. So for this Asana board, for example, if you can maybe look in the top right corner, I have a department field there. I'm going to map that over so it maps to my department metadata attribute in MediaValet here. I'm just going to select from this dropdown, map department to department. So that's all good to go. I'm going to hit submit. And now we're uploading these 2 assets, so these 2 JPEGs directly into MediaValet, into my new category that I defined with this new path with those mapped over attribute fields on this end here. And you'll also get that little status of what just happened once you do that. If I go into the MediaValet side now, I'll see my new assets in my brand new category. The last part of this integration here is going to be our rules. So not much to show on the task end, but more on the rules side here. So let me just close this task out and we'll go to our rules. So I've set this rule up at a very basic level for when my task is changes to complete. It's going to check if the task has an attachment, and if yes, it's going to then upload directly to MediaValet, and we can define where it's going to be uploaded to within the task itself. So if we actually go to the task here, I have this category path field, so it's going to upload to this brand refresh folder. You can create these rules however you'd like. The action that you're just going to be adding is going to be the MediaValet upload rule. So whatever comes before that, completely up to you guys in your workflow, but then we can now push any missing content automatically. So when something is complete, all of that is retained in MediaValet, as well as all of the data is now turned into attributes. Okay, perfect. That is the demo rounded out on the MediaValet. It's here. Thanks so much, guys. I'm gonna pass it back to Marcus here, actually.
Great. Okay. Just share over from my side. Fantastic. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, mate. That was great. So MediaValet demo showing that new integration that's been released by MediaValet, allowing you to do those sync of assets and things. Now, what I'm going to take you through is that day in the life, which is having a look at actually how we can use these tools in a workflow which you would go through almost multiple times a day if you're working in a marketing team or a creative team. And that starts off with briefing in a piece of work, and that can be done by customers, it can be done by team members. And essentially in these days, we're doing them inside these work management tools like Asana, where a lot of people would create a briefing form. And so you can essentially have it in your briefing form, that'll create the Asana task. You can then choose which assets to use from your asset management system using the MediaValet integration. So that you can say, well, here's my brief. Oh, by the way, here are the assets that I'd like you to use in that design work. So then the designer can, as they're assigned that task, can read the brief, they can see the assets that have been suggested for use, and they can go about doing the design work. And then you can send the first proof back out to the team using PageProof and PageProof's integration with Asana. And I'll show you that as part of this workflow. So we're going to go through a process of briefing, design, and then the final one here, which is delivery. So as Matt showed, you can have the assets coming back into your Asana task, and they can sync over to MediaValet. There's also a feature which you can use if the assets are potentially larger than the Asana task can handle. You can use the PageProof final file delivery, which will actually deliver the asset directly into MediaValet. So I will show that. So that's what I'm about to show you, is a brief, design, and then approve and delivery. So let's get straight into it. Okay, let's go into the demo. So I'm going to jump in first and show the request form. So inside of Asana, you can create these request forms. So the sort of things you can do here, obviously putting in your name and the name of your project, which might be, we saw that there were some students there. So in the photography and assets that Matt was using. So I'm going to create a cover for my magazine called Uni Week, and I can write my creative brief. I can set a priority. Filling out this form is going to create an asset inside of Asana. It's going to create a task inside of Asana. So if I jump over into Asana, I can see, right, there's my Uni Week cover. It's been assigned to me as the designer. It's due this Friday. Here's the brief. Create a cover for Uni Week using the 3 MediaValet links in this task. So I thought, okay, great. Make note about computing and bits and pieces. So there's my brief that's been written from my team member. And if I go down here, I can see, oh, great. They've taken the time to actually use MediaValet's integration, which is awesome, because I can say, well, what are these assets? As a designer, I can just click View in MediaValet. It opens up and shows me the assets that I can use inside of my design. So those are the 3 assets that have been selected and attached to the Asana task. So as a designer, it's a great way. I've got my brief and I've got my links over to my task as well. So that's using the MediaValet integration to actually assign them in here, which is super, super easy to do. Really, really great. And you can see those assets directly from inside of here. Now, I'm going to fast forward the process. No offense to any designers. I also apologize in advance for my design, but we'll switch over to a little bit of work that I've been doing inside of InDesign. There we go. And I've used the assets which have been assigned in that task. I've created my Uni Week cover. I've put the 3 images inside of here. I've mentioned the computing, the green rivers, and coding like I was briefed to do. So I can go through and create up this cover. And right now, I want to send this back out to the team for them to have a look and give me feedback on what they think of the cover. So using the PageProof integration with InDesign, now this panel that you see here, this is available in all the creative tools that you'd possibly use, including Figma, Illustrator, Photoshop, even Microsoft PowerPoint. We've got plugins in every design tool with PageProof, and it means that you can send your proofing directly out of the design tool without having to leave the design tool. And we talked about, Stephen talked about the integration of things, keeping everything seamless. So I can simply come in here, click onto create new proof, be my Uni Week cover. I can just upload that directly from inside of my design tool. It's going to create the proof for me inside of here, and it's going to come up and open up PageProof and say, okay, great. Now we're going to send out this proof. So there we have the proofing screen set up. Now, from inside of here, all I need to do to connect this back to my Asana task is just click on these three dots under reference, choose Asana, and then it's a task. I can type in here Uni Week because that was the name of the task that I was working on. And that's now connected this proof to the Uni Week task inside of Asana. And we'll have a look at that in a moment. Now, what I'm also going to do here is I would like the finished version of this proof to be delivered to MediaValet using final file delivery. So all I need to do is just put in a tag inside the task, MV or MediaValet, and now this proof is marked with a MediaValet stamp. That means that when it's approved, it's going to deliver it over to MediaValet for us automatically. Now I'm going to add in here a couple of things. I'll turn on the PageProof intelligence. I'm also going to come in here and say, this is a workflow that we want to use. So we're actually going to use this marketing approval workflow. So it's going to go to the creative team first. Once they've approved it or left their feedback, it'll then go to our product team, our legal team, and then to our final approver. So this is a PageProof workflow. It's going to move the proof through the team sequentially and gather feedback along the way. Now, these people, by the way, they're not Asana users. These are people that you can just use anybody out in the world there to give you feedback on your proofs, which is great, but everything is going to roll up into that Asana task. So I'm going to send this proof out, and that's going to upload it into the platform. And then if I go over to Asana, let's have a look back inside of Asana here. You'll see now my custom fields here are showing this is in proofing, this is the step it's up to, and it's got the URL and when the proof was created. So that's great. You can see that information. You'll also see down here now, inside of my Asana task, I've got a PageProof widget and a MediaValet widget, which is great. The two working in concert inside of Asana. So we can see this is the status showing it's in proofing, and there's our assets that we're using from MediaValet. So those are the two integrations, and it's all inside this one task, which is great. Really, really great if you're managing things. You can see the brief. You can see who it's assigned to, the deadline. There's the proof. There are the assets. Everything is all inside this one Asana task, which is really, really great. Okay, so I'm going to jump out from directly inside of here. I'm just going to click onto this view in PageProof, and it'll show us our proof directly inside. Now, we can go through here. Obviously, I'm not going to do a full demo of PageProof, but essentially you can grab any of these pen tools. You can leave feedback on the proof. You can go through and do things like, what does PageProof intelligence think of my proof? So there's some AI feedback on my proof. It's going through and giving me a little bit of feedback that I should probably consider as well. So that's pretty cool. But I'm going to essentially, for the purposes of actually leaving, doing the demo, I'm going to just approve this inside of PageProof. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say, yes, this is approved. That's going to approve the proof directly inside of PageProof. And what it's going to do here is it's going to update the task inside of Asana. So if I go back into Asana, we'll see that task has been approved. So it's now moved it in my board down into the approved area. If I open that up, we can see, yes, the status has been approved. We've got the approval date and all that sort of information inside of here. And it's showing us all of that updated information inside of the Asana task. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, we'll see that the final approved file has been attached into the Asana task. And inside of here, you could use the automations from MediaValet to deliver that over into MediaValet. So you could use that feature if you wanted to. But also I know that because we put that MediaValet tag onto the proof itself, if I go over now and take a look inside of MediaValet and we go over to the PageProof final file delivery, there is our asset already delivered into MediaValet. So I can click in, there it is. That was what we were just looking at a few minutes ago inside of InDesign. Here it is in my asset management system, and it's got the URL and everything inside of here as well. So there's some metadata that's been moved over from PageProof into MediaValet. So pretty seamless way of working. Essentially, what we saw there was brief, got the assets from MediaValet into InDesign, sent out our proof. Proof was approved and then automatically delivered into MediaValet. So this is a really, really nice way of working, and it keeps everything all together in one place, which is super, super nice. Okay, so that's the demo of PageProof. Now we're looking at, what is the payoff of all of this? You just saw, and that was all live, which is a great thing. I'm showing you essentially a live demo there. And the great thing about it is, if you look at the returns from this, faster time to market, you can create a brief, get it into design, and then into the asset management system for its final delivery super quickly. In fact, you just saw it happen during a webinar. And now, if you want to see how quickly that can run with a lot of production teams, we're using Asana at the center, which is amazing. Now, brand governance, really important, because what we saw there was that the asset, when it was finally approved in PageProof, made its way into the asset management system. Now, that's incredibly important. I didn't have to download anything and then upload it into MediaValet manually. It was done automatically, which is a massive win for those that are trying to keep all their assets in the asset management system, because unless an asset is inside an asset management system, nobody is going to use it, nobody knows about it. So that is the single source of truth for all of your assets. And from a brand governance point of view, we've got the right assets arriving in the right place, and they are approved through a system which takes care of all those approvals. And all that information is recorded in Asana, which is what everyone wants for that reporting side of it, which we'll get to in a moment. Scalability, as Stephen said, as the volume grows in the content that you need to create, you need to have great ways of managing that scale. And high volume of briefs coming in. The design team are now under pressure to get these things done. Now, if they have the assets right there, the design becomes a lot easier. And then the approvals are all handled automatically through a PageProof workflow. And then they can get that feedback back into InDesign, make those changes, go through the approvals, and then it's automatically delivered to MediaValet. It's pretty cool from a scale perspective. And then finally, that audit trail. Everything you have seen here is all audited, and the tracking of it is all done inside of Asana, but you've also got those point solution parts. So inside of PageProof, we've got a full detailed audit in there. And over in MediaValet, you will also create an audit trail there of who's using the asset, who downloaded it, all those things, which MediaValet does really, really well. So across the board, that is a fully connected creative workflow that you can use to scale out and simplify your creative operations. And I think that is the big point, is scale and simplification, which are the intersections that you really want when it comes to today's world. Okay, so at this point, I'll hand back over to Stephen for a Q&A, if anyone's got any questions that have come in.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Marcus. Thanks, Matt. As you said, Marcus, live demos are the best kind of demos. So really good to see in real time how MediaValet and PageProof integrate with Asana, using Asana lexicon, and meaning that you don't have to have that disconnected content ecosystem, that you don't have to work in different systems. So great to see that. We did have some questions. So one question for you, Marcus, it's from Penny. Does Asana PageProof native allow for the custom field population?
Yes, absolutely. So what we saw there's the custom fields that we saw inside there. Those custom fields are defined and can be filled out. And you can see here's a list of all the custom fields that PageProof can support. So even total comments, number of to-dos, collections, proof versions, all of these custom fields can be automatically populated from the PageProof integration. So yes, that is absolutely possible.
Great, thanks, Marcus. Another question in the chat, this one's for you, Matt, is what happens to the asset links in Asana when the assets in MediaValet are moved or deleted?
Yeah, so if the asset in MediaValet is moved, the asset will retain through with that link. So that's okay there. It's only if the asset is deleted, then we're essentially breaking the link because we don't want the link to exist because we're deleting the asset. So it's a full security measure across the board there. Having said that, only very few individuals within MediaValet for every customer organization here has delete permissions within their user base. So typically those should all be fine. If it's deleted for a good reason. And we actually want those links to break if the asset is deleted, just to make sure old assets or non-compliant assets aren't running around loose.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Couple of questions around pricing too. Uh, so I'll take the MediaValet pricing question. Marcus, I'll ask you the PageProof one. So if we're already paying for PageProof in Asana, do we have access to it now?
Yes, so if you are an existing PageProof customer, then and if you have Asana, it's a matter of literally going into Asana, into the apps, doing a search for PageProof, and connecting. So it's available for you right now. So you can have the PageProof integration, and that's with Asana, and that's on all PageProof plans.
Okay. Yeah, and so there's a question, I think Ryan had that question around MediaValet. So just there's a couple of scenarios here, Ryan, and if whomever else has a pricing question. So you may have bought Asana through a third party like Interoperate, and so there'll be some configuration that we need to do. So there's potentially no additional cost to set up that migration. And if you're a new customer, this integration is built on our Unify integration framework. So likely that would have been part of your actual package. So there's a couple of scenarios on the pricing, but generally, if you're a new customer, it'll be in the pricing. But maybe Ryan, if you go back to the previous slide there, Marcus, contact info is there. So if you, Ryan, want to send me a note, I'll follow up with you one-on-one on that. I just don't know what your account status is. A couple other questions here. Let me just pull them up. Yeah, lots of questions, which is great. People were paying attention. So question for you, Marcus. When a proof is approved, is only the latest version sent to MediaValet?
Yes, that's correct. So only the approved version goes to MediaValet. So that's a hard and fast rule that we have built
Great.
in.
And then a question for you, Matt, and this is a really important one because we know those on the call who manage the dam, good governance starts with good taxonomy and good metadata. So when an asset is pushed back to MediaValet from Asana, does the metadata update in real time or is there a sync delay?
Yeah. So it's real time. So as soon as you push the asset, whether that's manually or through the automation, as soon as the asset is uploaded into MediaValet, the metadata will also be uploaded along with that asset there.
Great. And another question for you here, Matt. How are permissions handled if someone has view-only access in MediaValet? Does that carry over automatically inside Asana?
Yeah. So as long as they have the same permissions within MediaValet as they do within the Asana link that they're looking at, so for that asset, they'll be able to view
Okay.
that asset, no problem there. So we take great pride in making sure that our permissions are all segmented. We work with a lot of strict organizations to make sure it's all set and ready to go there.
Perfect. Another question for you, Marcus, and this is an interesting one because we know the number 2 search engine on the internet is YouTube, and the fastest in our research and with our customer base, the fastest growing content is video format is video. So does PageProof work with video production workflows?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we've been doing video production workflows since 2016. So it's a good 10 years of video production workflows. So yeah, full support, those plugins that we saw in InDesign, that same plugin exists in Premiere Pro, After Effects, DaVinci Resolve, Apple Final Cut Pro. So we all the tools that video producers would use for their for assembling their work. And of course, proofing, you can mark up leave feedback all over video files, and then the final asset, the final approved proof, we can deliver that video file into MediaValet directly.
Okay, great. And this is kind of a question for kind of both of you. I mean, we talk about content ecosystems, we talk about technology, and as I'd mentioned at the beginning of the session, one of the big challenges is just all these point solutions, all these different solutions that we're constantly being sold to. And they promise smooth integration, but it doesn't, but there's a heavy lift to get it working. So what's the technical lift to connect all three tools, so Asana, MediaValet, PageProof, and does it require developer involvement on their end, or is it admin configurable?
Yeah, well, I think I can maybe speak for
Yeah.
everyone there. So in both cases, it's a matter of just an admin being able to be able to go and choose the app and connect it. So there's no developers required. It's very, very easy to connect these things up. And I think the advantage of point solutions, as we know, is they are specialists in their field, and they are usually the best tool to perform the task. So it's a really, really great thing to be able to seamlessly bring them together, and you get the best of all fields in one place, which is a really nice thing about these integrations. So no developer needed. You can have these up and running pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that's always been a challenge for marketing is getting time from if this type of work requires internal dev resources, it does make it more challenging for marketing to get what it needs done. Final question. This is for you, Marcus. Do I need Asana? I currently only have PageProof.
So do you need Asana? Well, look, I think PageProof works as a standalone product, and if you want to work with PageProof and MediaValet, then you can actually get all of this working between PageProof and MediaValet. So the final file delivery is all available for you as a customer. Just have to figure out the plans to get that all right. But Asana is just great for that work management, but it's not required for any of these solutions to work. They all work standalone. But the beauty is, if you do add them together, you get that mesh of one solution going.
Great. Let me just take another look at the questions. That's it for questions. So, Marcus and Matt, appreciate your time. Appreciate you taking us through the demo for both platforms and how they integrate into Asana. As I mentioned at the top of the call, we will be sending out this presentation, the recording, to everyone who attended. You've got our contact info, so feel free to reach out to any of us individually with follow-up questions. As well, on this screen here, there's some follow-up pages that you can reference to learn more about how both MediaValet and PageProof work with each other, but also work with Asana. So really appreciate everyone's time. Great questions. I love it when we get questions on a webinar because people are engaged. And so enjoy the rest of your day. And Matt, Marcus, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye now.